Hi, Shirley here. And today I want to talk about the switching of the nodes to Scorpio and Taurus. So the nodes of the moon are usually where we have the series of eclipses, and we just switched from Gemini and Sag to Scorpio and Taurus, and we already had an eclipse on the Scorpio-Taurus axis with the nodes still being in Gemini and Sag, but near the end. And now we're having the nodes for a year and a half or so in Scorpio and Taurus. So the north node is going to be on Taurus and the south in Scorpio. And so a little bit about the nodes of the moon themselves. I'm going to speak more about the mythical aspect and as channeled, not so much what you can find in any YouTube video when you search nodes of the moon or Ketu and Rahu. So it is the legend about the dragon or the slain dragon. That one part was the Ketu, the south, the tail, and the other was the head, that is Rahu, or the north node. And I'm getting the color green, and I'm getting dragon, and I'm getting to think about the multiple symbols of dragons in multiple cultures. So dragons in some culture is something that you slay, to slay the dragon. And then we have the story, the myth of the slain dragon, and it became Rahu and Ketu. But dragon is also a force, or the dragon within you, which is actually a force that helps you overcome obstacles. And there are many colors of dragons, and I'm getting the color green and gray. And this is channeled, so it might not be one with the literature. I'm getting the Kundalini energy, which is basically life energy or sexual energy as we know it, but it's not sexual like only animalistic, but both animalistic and instinctive and spiritual. So especially when we talk about the nodes being in signs like Scorpio and Taurus, then the animalistic aspect and the spiritual aspect of both the Scorpio type and the Taurus type are going to come into interaction with our spiritual growth. So a ton of sexuality, because these are the signs, right? Scorpio rules the reproductive system, and Taurus the throat chakra, right? Venus the voice, and so the sex chakra, throat chakra. That's the thing. While the Scorpio is more to do with survivalistic, in the sense of coping under tremendous stress and tremendous threat. And that aspect of survivalism within fear. And the spirit is a resourcefulness we have under stress. With the Scorpio, it's a very survivalistic thing, but it is not only a base chakra thing, it's also a crown, it's also spirit. And this is what we also need to remember, especially with Ketu there, that the spirit and the matter of the type, of the archetype of Scorpio are merging, and Ketu brings spiritual enlightenment by letting go of something, and Scorpio is the reproductive system and its survivalistic mechanisms. So there's a lot of letting go of survivalistic mechanisms, especially for the Pluto in Scorpio. For those of you, perhaps you are like me and you have Pluto in 0 degree Scorpio, so you would feel it urgently. You will urgently be letting go, because feeling something urgent is very Scorpio-Taurus axis. You're urgently letting go of certain survivalistic mechanisms, especially the Pluto in Scorpios. The urgency would no longer be about I have to do this or I have to do that, but I have to let go of those things that I used to do when times got stressful. And so you will be blessed with the letting go of basically certain traumas and the mechanism that created them. Because to let go of a mechanism, you don't let go of the behavior, you let go of the very reasoning that created the behavior. And to do that, you need to let go of the essence of the memory, which is the trauma itself, and that is the spirit and the matter of things. Trauma stored in your reproductive system are like urgently being let go of. Even if you're like me, like Pluto in the first degrees of Scorpio, then even your next, if you're menstruating, menstruation cycle will be such letting go of those memories. Like it may even go down with the menstruation, or if you are not menstruating, then perhaps with sexuality, literally the liquids of sexuality. That's what I'm getting, that those will rejuvenate the system. And then for the Taurus, so to say, wait with the Taurus, stick with the Scorpios. So yes, it is letting go of the essence of trauma. It can be sexual trauma, of course. It can also be childhood trauma. It can also be any sort of trauma that you repressed to your body. If you did not deal with something, then it can rise up. And then usually it's stored in the places where there is a psychosexual connection. But this is also the brain. And now we go to the Taurus, because what do we have in Taurus right now? We have Uranus, and Uranus rules the nervous system. And so Rahu is what comes into our life as we let go of the past. But it is also what's coming into our life so that we are able to let go of the past. So realization of the connection between the nervous system, Uranus, the higher octave of the nervous system, and the nervous system is not the person's nervous system, but the nervous system of society. The connection between nervous systems. The experiments that were made, that you put a couple of people in one room and you tell them to get, to make, a shape or a letter, and then you just let them go, and they find a way to walk around the room, even if it's crowded, in a way that they don't collide. And this happens due to the ability of the nervous systems to connect and create a network. So in Taurus, we have that skill of creating new networks. And this means healing the collective, because this is a higher octave Mercury. It is Uranus, right? It's not just with one nervous system. It can be healing the nervous system of one person that's needed to heal from trauma through the body, but not only through making like neurofeedback, rather than through channeling and downloading mass consciousness, then aligning ourselves with the greater nervous system around us. It can be machine learning statistical models rather than, ANOVA or recursive regression into regression. So the scientific models to study the body or study agriculture or the technology is going to be more network based, more machine learning type It's not going to be machine learning. It's going to be machine learning type statistical models or probability models to make sure we cover up for multiple parameters, for a lot of parameters, and aligning ourselves to wisdom of the masses. So wisdom is a very Taurian thing. It's a Venus-ruled sign, and the kind of intelligence is the intelligence of the ground and intelligence of physical experience in the 3D world. But this is the wisdom that is conjoined with Uranus, and Uranus is ruling Aquarius, and Aquarius is the masses. So connecting with the wisdom of the masses can heal the nervous system and thereby help releasing traumas from the individual in a way that basically heals society. So we are on the verge of changing our collective unconsciousness. To go back to Scorpio, what we are letting go, we're basically changing the collective unconsciousness, changing the hidden knowledge aspects in our society by downloading, by connecting with something that is network based and not so much hierarchy based, because Uranus, as the ruler of Aquarius, is about the anarchy, and we need to understand Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn. So anarchy is not lack of order. Even chaotic system, this is not a lack of order. It's a dynamic order that changes and has a quality of being unpredictable, but it also has a quality of us being able to intervene and affect the system in certain intervals that can create prediction and can create an order that is less hierarchical than, for example, the Capricorn is a Saturn sign. So, any more about that? Agriculture. So, technologies in agriculture. And when I talk about agriculture, you must think not only fruits and vegetables, but also farming. What we grow from the land is not just the fruits and the trees, it's also the animals. And the technology that Uranus brings is the ability to work with the nerves, with electricity, and to create, for example, flesh from, let's say, tissues. That's a very Taurus thing, the tissues or the body. So to create meat from the tissue of the animal rather than to use the animal itself. Because the tissue holds the DNA, but the tissue also holds the nervous system. So all the things that we need to, the signals that we need, both as humans, what we eat is the nervous system of another living creature, whether we eat a tomato or we eat a cow or we eat a pig. We are eating the nervous system of something, we are eating the consciousness of something, and that is something you don't need to kill an animal to do. And that nervous system brings out the hormones that create the nourishment needed. This is how we get our minerals and vitamins as well absorbed, because when the body is not under stress, then we can absorb the food. And so the technology to create ethical meat and not depend on growing, 10,000 cows to feed a village is growing, because humanity is growing and we need food. And the reasonable reason, Uranus, it's ruling Aquarius, and Aquarius is reason. The reasonable technological solution would be to not rely on animals. This is even from a utilitarian perspective. Animals are limited resource. Multiplying tissues is unlimited resource. Just the way a picture you take with with Kodak film camera is unique. but the picture you take on your cell phone is digital, and you can multiply it, and you can edit it, and you can do many things with it. The same with the flesh of an animal. So from a utilitarian perspective, it's much better to do that. And technologies, the minute you develop a technology, it becomes cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper very quickly. So that is not a difficult bridge to cross. And that's from one perspective. Of course, from a humanitarian perspective, which is both a Taurus thing, the wisdom, and the down to earth, the seeing one another as down to earth, but it's also an Aquarius thing. Humanitarian and humanitarian goals is also humanitarian thing. So technology of Uranus is also in the service of humanity. And in the service of humanity, in the service of seeing all living things as equal, of course, if we can nourish ourselves with the use of technology rather than with actually having to grow and kill animals, or even confine them, which is something that Aquarius does not like. It does not like to confine things, but to grow things in the open space. That is more likely to happen under an activation of eclipses in the Taurus Scorpio axis, where there is a Uranus there. We need to remember that Uranus will be squaring Saturn throughout 2022 as well. That is not a bad thing. Saturn makes sure things happen on time. What Saturn is there for is, let's say, people offer you a solution, and the Uranus person would say, let's go for it. And the Saturn person would say, wait, how practical is the solution? Let's go from point A to point B and go through every stop along the way and make sure that all of the phases of that solution are correct and are practical and are realistic. So Saturn square Uranus is not necessarily about putting Uranus down or putting the technology down. Let's say we talk about agriculture, so growing meat from the tissues of the animal without animal cruelty. Amazing. Then the Saturn person will say, okay, what about the vitamins? Is the iron as absorbable as the iron from the animal? What about pollution? Does the factory create more pollution than actually growing the animals? And more stuff that Saturn is just going to remind us that, hey, there is this technology, but we want to ground it. And Saturn is at home, is in Aquarius. So it's not doing the bad cop. It's Saturn wants to do something new when it's in Aquarius. And Saturn wants to create a new framework and a new structure that is less hierarchical when it's in Aquarius. Saturn is not the bad cop, but it is practical, and it asks us to be present, and it asks us to come up with realistic solutions, with down-to-earth solutions. And Uranus is, being in the sign of Taurus can take a little bit to adjust. But it is already, I think it's already 10 degrees, and it was 15 degrees of Taurus. It is already adjusting to the energy of Taurus. So the technologies can now begin to spring. And the technologies can now begin to spring, and the word spring comes. So I definitely look into April, look into May, where we will also have Jupiter slowly going. Yes, I think we will also have Jupiter slowly going. I think it's into Aries, because it has already been retrograde, but I need to check myself. So don't believe anything I say. If I say I need to check myself. And I think April is when we have the conjunction between Jupiter and Neptune, April, May. So that is a very lucky thing, but it is also very ungrounding. It can create a breakthrough. I'm getting legislation. Yes, I will need to look deeper into that conjunction between Jupiter and Neptune and do another video about that. Anything more about the nodes? No. So that was what I had to say, what my guidance had to say about the transition to the Scorpio and Taurus axis. And that was me, Shirley. And I'll see you on my next video. Bye.